Alright, welcome back guys to Cardboard Currencies. Today we've got a deck tech. We're looking at Jasmine Boreal of the 7, but we're going to do this a little bit differently. Jasmine is an interesting little commander, and it's a good opportunity to talk about how I kind of brew decks. The last video I shot about this got a little rambly, so I'm going to try to keep this under 10 minutes. 10 to 15 minutes. 16 minutes. We'll find out. But here we go. So Jasmine Boreal of the 7. If you don't know her, she taps, add a green and white, spend this mana only to cast creature spells with no abilities. Creatures you control with no abilities can't be blocked by creatures with abilities. So Jasmine has a potential of super strong, unblockable creatures. So this would be a really interesting commander to kind of build around, which I have done so here. But you can take her in so many different directions. It's hard to really nail down how you should build her or how you would want to build her. So I'm going to walk you through my brewing process to kind of point you in the right direction. So first off, we talk statistics. So we've got 11 piles here, 9 cards each. The first 4 piles I have of 9 cards are all lands. That puts us at 36 lands right off the bat. So in a perfect statistical world, this should give us by turn 4, you'll have 4 lands that have been in your hands. Now, of course, statistics are always funny. That won't always be the case in a perfect world, but in a pure overall statistical mindset, it is relevant. So out of the 36 lands, of course, we get all of our colors with Command Tower, Thriving Heath, Thriving Grove, Temple Garden for a little shock land action, Bountiful Promenade, Selesnya Sanctuary, Overgrown Farmland, Botanical Plaza, and a little Castle Garenbrig to round out that 9. For the plains, we've got 8 plains and an Oran Reef the Vastwood to kind of get some 1/1 counters on those green creatures. 9 forests. And then some search stuff: Windswept Heath, Evolving Wilds, Terramorphic Expanse, Fabled Passage, Myriad Landscape, Frozen Verge, Path of Ancestry, little Rogue's Passage to get some other creatures that might have abilities that you want to get through, to get through anyway, and a Cardin's Bastion, because we've already thrown a little bit of 1/1 action in there. Might as well throw it in there. Maybe it'll be helpful to proliferate a little bit. Alright, so we got those 36 lands out of the way. Now, of course, with Jasmine, the very first thing that you're going to think is vanilla creatures, right? So let's look at some of those. We'll throw those in one of the piles. We got Cliffhaven Sellsword, which is a 3/1. Expeditionary Envoys at 2/1. Leatherback Baloth is a 4/5. My goodness. And we've got a bunch of other creatures that are in there. Low mana costs, just like the commander, that you can tap and help pay for those. Yeah, so we've got those in the deck here. We'll throw those right there for now. Now, with every deck, you're going to want to throw some protection in there. If it's blue, you know, I can kind of count counters as some protection for your board state. But in green and white, it's a little different. You're talking probably board wipes to begin with, right? And got that in Austere Command, Hour of Reckoning, Citywide Bust. But with a creatures heavy deck, you can add Aura Shards, and that says whenever a creature comes into play, under your control, you may destroy target artifact or enchantment. Super good. Urzi's Predation. For each creature your opponent controls, create a 4/4 green beast creature token. Each of those beasts fight a different one of those creatures. So the beauty about this one is even if your enemies get a little bit ahead and maybe spawn out a bunch of tokens, suddenly you've got just as many 4/4 green beast tokens, and they're unblockable because they don't have any abilities. Because most of creatures in Commander are going to have some sort of ability. It's very rare that a creature wouldn't. It's very rare that people would be throwing vanilla creatures out there. But, yeah. Extra protection here. Whisper Silk Cloak. Equipped creature can't be blocked and has Shroud. Great ability to add some protection to a creature. Eerie Interlude will exile any number of target creatures you control and return those to the battlefield under the owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. Ruxa Patient Professor. Now this is a good one to, not exactly protection, but you can get something back from your graveyard if it got sent there. But what it says is, when Ruxa Patient Professor enters the battlefield or attacks, return target creature with no abilities from your graveyard to your hand, plus any creature you control with no abilities gets +1/+1, and you may have creatures you control with no abilities assign their combat damage as though they weren't blocked. They're really good with some vanilla creatures and stuff like that, so let's throw it in there. And last off, Balaged Recovery. If you got a card in the graveyard that you really, really want back, you can use it to get it, or you can flip it to add a little bit of land in a tough spot. So, all right. Now, we're working in colors white and green. So green, the rampy color. So let's throw some ramp in there. Nature's Lore. Search your library for a forest card. Harrow. You have to sacrifice a land and then get to go look for 2. Kodama's Reach, you go look for 2 lands, put 1 out on the battlefield tapped, 1 in your hand. Rampant Growth, put 1 out tapped. Cultivate, put 1 out tapped, put 1 in your hand. Roiling Regrowth, sacrifice a land, go grab 2 basic lands, put them on the battlefield tapped. Colony Heart Expedition, this one's a fun one for me, I really like this card. But it says it has landfall, and then you remove 3 quest counters from it, sacrifice it, and you can go get 2 basic land cards, put them on the battlefield tapped. This is a fun one because not a lot of people really hold on to it long enough, I think. Realistically, they'll get those 3 counters on it and sack it right off the bat, but it's really good in landfall, just to kind of hold on to that sometimes, so add it in there. Again, I like to throw cards I've never played before into decks. So Jaheira's Respite is a newish card. Search your library for up to X basic land cards, where X is the number of creatures attacking you right now. Plus, prevent all combat damage that would be dealt this turn. Super good. For 5 though, it's a little high, but let's see how it plays out in the deck. And then Murasa Root Grazer. So we kind of played with the idea of landfall already. Murasa Root Gazer is really good for enabling some landfall kind of thoughts, some landfall decks, and it can really ramp you if you've got the land in hand, so let's throw it in there, see what happens. Alright, again, we've played with landfall a little bit, and so let's throw in some token creators. We got Retreat to Emeria, which creates a 1/1 white core ally creature token every time it triggers with landfall. Plus, you can choose this or not. Creatures you control get +1/+1 until end of turn. Maja Bredegard Protector. Other creatures you control get +1/+1, and whenever a land enters the battlefield, you make a 1/1 white human warrior creature token. Felidar Retreat is like it, but you make a 2/2 white cat beast creature token. Or you can put a 1/1 counter on each creature you control. Those creatures gain vigilance until end of turn, which sadly will make them any tokens or anything that you're giving this vigilance to will make them blockable because then they'd have an ability. Spore Mound. Whenever a land enters the battlefield, create a 1/1 green sapperling creature token. Then tokens just in general, let's throw some in there. Visions of Glory, create a 1/1 white human creature token for each creature you control with a flashback, so that's pretty cool. Increasing Devotions like it, but you create 5 1/1 white human creature tokens, and then it's got flashback for 9, and if you cast it for flashback, you get 10 tokens, so that's pretty cool. Rabble Rousing. Hideaway 5. You take 5 cards off the top of your library, choose one, put it under this card, or in exile, or however you want to play it. But whenever you attack with 1 or more creatures, create that many 1/1 green and white citizen creature tokens. Then if you control 10 or more creatures, you may play the exiled card without paying its mana cost. So every time you attack trigger, you are doubling the amount of creatures you have. Stupid good. On top of that, though, throw an Anointed Possession in there. If an effect would create 1 or more tokens under your control, it creates twice that many. Heck yeah. And another fun new one, Kadira Caller of the Small. Trample, and whenever it deals combat damage to a player, for each token you control, create a 1/1 white rabbit creature token. So potentially doubling your little army there. So that would be pretty cool. Alright, moving on up, let's talk about some 1/1 counters, right? Because that can buff up some of these creatures, and then as long as they don't have an ability, maybe they're tokens, vanilla creatures, whatever it is, as long as they're landing damage with Kazur Ruthless Stalker out on the field, it's adding 1/1 counters. So yeah, super good. Vigor, if damage would be dealt to another creature you control, prevent that damage. Put a 1/1 counter on that creature for each 1 damage prevented this way. Plus, whenever Vigor is put into a graveyard from anywhere, shuffle it into the owner's library. Renata called to the hunt. Each other creature you control enters the battlefield with an additional 1/1 counter on it. Armory of Eros, whenever equipped creature attacks, put a 1/1 counter on it. Great Sword of Tyr, whenever equipped creature attacks, put a 1/1 counter on it, and tap up to 1 target creature defending player controls. Fractal Harness is a really fun one. You pay into X, and whatever the X is, the 0/0 green and blue fractal creature token that comes out when this is played, it gets that many 1/1 counters on it. Then, every time it attacks, double the amount of 1/1 counters on it. Conclave Mentor, if one or more 1/1 counters would be put on a creature you control, you can put 1 more on it. Same with Hardened Scales. And then Basri Ket, you +1, and you get a 1/1 counter on target creature, and it gains indestructible until end of turn. Minus them down 2 whenever 1 or more non-token creatures attack this turn. Create that many 1/1 white soldier creature tokens that are tapped and attacking. Then its ult, you get an emblem with, at the beginning of the combat on your turn, create a 1/1 soldier creature token, then put a 1/1 counter on each creature you control. So, kind of really good with the things that we're doing so far in the deck, creating token creatures. We've got some non-token creatures that attack, getting 1/1 counters on it. So let's see how it plays out. Leonora, Autumn Sovereign. Now we're going into card advantage, right? And in green and white, you don't really have a lot of draw spells, but you have some draw enablers and stuff. So Leonora is one of those. At the beginning of combat on your turn, put a 1/1 counter on up to 1 target creature you control. Then if you control 3 or more creatures with different powers, draw a card. Rogue's Glove, whenever equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, you may draw a card. Toski, Bearer of Secrets. He can't be countered, indestructible, attacks each combat if able, and whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. With unblockable creatures, that could be a lot of cards you're drawing. Beast Whisperer, whenever you cast a creature spell, draw a card. Mentor of the Meek, whenever another creature you with power 2 or less enters the battlefield under your control, you can pay 1. If you do, draw a card. Harmonic Revelation, draw a card for each creature you control. Plain and simple. But if it's power 4 or greater, you gain 4 life for each of those creatures too. So super good. Garrick Primal Hunter, +1, create a token, a 3/3 green beast creature token. -3, draw cards equal to the greatest power among creatures you control, which can be super powerful. It's ult, create a 6/6 green worm creature token for each land you control, which can be a lot in this deck. Idyllic Tutor, search your library for an enchantment card, reveal it, put it in your hand, then shuffle your library. We've got a lot of them in this deck, so card advantage means you get to pick out a card in your library. Super good. Eldamri's Calls like it, but you get to go look for a creature instead. Okay, so last pile here of 9. This is kind of a pile of things that I wanted to play in this deck, but really didn't fit into any of the other archetypes we were kind of testing out. So Throne of the God Pharaoh, I throw into any creature-heavy deck. At the beginning of your end step, each opponent loses life equal to the number of tapped creatures you control. Halo Fountain, it's a good creature generator. Pay 1, untap a tapped creature you control, create a 1/1 green and white citizen creature token. Pay 2 white, tap pay 2 white, tap, untap 2 tapped creatures you control, draw a card. There's just a lot of tapping with this card, it gets confusing. 5 white, tap, untap 15 tapped creatures you control, and you just win the game. So an alternate win con there, heck yeah. Keeper of the Cord is a good catch-up card. At the beginning of each opponent's end step, if that player controls more creatures than you, create a 1/1 white soldier creature token. And at the beginning of each opponent's end step, if that player controls more lands than you can search your library for a basic plains card, put it on the battlefield tap, then shuffle your library. Path of Discovery. I love Path of Discovery for creature-heavy decks. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, it explores. So you reveal the top card of your library, put that card into your hand if it's a land, otherwise put a 1/1 counter on the creature, then put the card back or put it in your graveyard. Augur of Autumn is great for landfall and creature-heavy decks. You may look at the top card of your library anytime. You may play lands from the top of your library, and as long as you control 3 or more creatures with different powers, you can also cast creature spells from the top of your library. Horn of Valhalla, it has a adventure on one side, which is pay X and 2 white to create X 1/1 white soldier creature tokens. And then you can cast it for the artifact side instead, or in addition to, depending on which ways you play it. Equipped creature gets +1/+1 for each creature you control, which can be a lot in this deck, so super good. Seraphic Greatsword. Equipped creature gets +2/+2 whenever equipped creature attacks the player with the most life. You create a 4/4 white angel creature token that is also attacking. And then some little anthems for some of these cards. Sylvan Anthem. Green creatures you control get +1/+1, and whenever a green creature enters the battlefield under your control, scry 1. And then Muraganda Petroglyphs. Creatures with no abilities get +2/+2. So there's a lot of creatures that won't have abilities in this deck, so super good to give them a little bit of a buff. Okay, so we've kind of built a deck, right? We've got 99 cards in here. It's not extremely focused though. We're doing a lot. Landfall, 1/1 counters, vanilla creatures, all of that stuff. So what I would do at this point is I would play it out. I'd mix it up, shuffle it up, and see what I liked, what I didn't like, and what I haven't liked, because I have played this deck already. I hate playing vanilla creatures. I just did not enjoy it at all. If I play tested it out, and I always play test till about turn 5, and at that point I kind of think, okay, there's a board wipe that's going to happen at this point. I can't guess what the board state's going to happen from here, so it's hard to kind of play out from the rest there. But even at turn 5 or 6 or 7, and I'm thinking, okay, I've got these vanilla creatures in hand, Jasmine's been taken off the board, it's going to be difficult to get her back out and play other creatures and have them attack. It just felt super wasteful sending these out. But what I absolutely loved about this deck was the landfall triggers. The landfall in this deck, spawning up all these unblockable tokens, was stupid good. And so that's what I have right here, is what I was gonna throw into those places. Avenger of Zendikar says that whenever it enters the battlefield, create a 0/1 green plant creature token for each land you control. And then landfall, put a 1/1 counter on each plant creature you control. Rampaging Ballast, you create a 4/4 green beast creature token anytime a land comes in. Zendikar's Royal makes a 2/2 green elemental creature token. Retreat to Khazan-dû, put a 1/1 counter on target creature or gain 2 life. Evolution Sage for all the 1/1 counters, now you're proliferating them. Amaria's Shepherd, whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, you may return target non-land permanent card from your graveyard to your hand. Plus, if it's a plains, you can return it right back to the battlefield instead. Tireless Provisioner, whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, create a food token or a treasure token. Doka Gardener, whenever you tap him, you may put a land card from your hand onto the battlefield. Then if you have 10 or more lands, you flip him, and when he's on this side, he's a 3/3. You can pay 6 to create an XX green elemental creature token where X is the number of lands you control. That doesn't have any abilities there, so you could, at this point, if it's flipped for 10 lands, you could have a 10/10 unblockable, as long as Jasmine's out, of course. Destiny Spinner, we've got lots of creatures, lots of enchantments. Let's protect them a little bit more by making them uncounterable. And then Queen Elenil of Redact. This is a new card that I wanted to try out. Its power and toughness are equal to the number of creatures you control. Then, if one or more creature tokens would be created under your control, those tokens plus a 1/1 white soldier creature token are created instead. So that's 10 cards, and that's technically because, though this was 9 cards, you think about, okay, well, what in this deck isn't going to perform now that you took all those 1/1 creatures out? And the answer is that, he's in here somewhere. We're getting there. Oh, maybe he was up here. There he is, Ruxa. I knew he was right there. So Ruxa, Patient Professor, is useless now, right? All your tokens are going to go to the graveyard, and then they're going to disappear. They're going to fizzle out. So the returning creatures back is not going to help you. So that's our 10th one there, and that's the whole point of playing it out. Seeing what works and what doesn't, and then pulling out the things that don't. So Basri Ket's another good example of things that might not work. Making a creature indestructible is cool, but whenever whenever one or more non-token creatures attack this turn, create that many 1/1 white soldier creature tokens that are tapped and attacking. Not as great anymore, because we don't have as many non-token creatures. They're all tokens. So maybe I'll pull this one out the next time, and yeah. So this is kind of how I brew decks, and we'll replace onesie twosie cards from here after we playtest them out, but realistically I do this so that I can get a feel of a deck and see what I like and see what I don't. Now, the reason I bring this up is because maybe you did like the vanilla creature feel, but maybe you also saw a sub-theme that goes in on this deck too. Look, equipment. There's a lot of equipment that are in this deck. It could potentially go in a completely separate direction from what you were originally thinking. Maybe there was a sub-theme there that could be explored, and maybe you want to explore that. But that's why I kind of brew in this way, so that I can easily pick and pull and match up different subtypes and try them out and see what I like and what I don't. But maybe you can take this. Maybe you can take this and kind of pick it apart, see what you like and what you don't like. Again, this is not the end state for this deck. I probably won't stay at 36 land, because statistically speaking, though, on a macro sense, 36 lands is perfect for the amount of mana that's needed for this deck, for the ability to make sure that I can keep pulling the lands that I need, and even if it's a dead draw, making sure I'm not mana screwed. Maybe it's pertinent that I throw in a couple additional lands and stuff, and maybe that's what Basri Ket's gonna turn into, a land there. But that's up to you. As you brew and as you build, try it out. See what you like, see what you don't like, and yeah. Hopefully this helped some of y'all in your deck brewing process, but this has been Cardboard Currency, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.